Geoverse Part 2 To Love is Human by GeodesicDragon Chapter 9 The Waiting Game Part 3. Celestia's son slowly crept into the library as Twilight lay on the couch. Groaning, she rolled onto her side. A knock on the door roused her from her gloomy reverie, and she slowly got to her hoofs. She opened the door slightly and peeked through the crack. 5 faces peered back at her, all with smiles on them. "Good morning, Twilight," Rarity said. "Did you sleep well?" Twilight made a neutral sound in her throat.
"We just came by to make sure you were settling in okay," Applejack said. "You know, after spending 3 weeks in the forest."
Twilight shot a glare at her friend, but Applejack didn't notice.
"I'm fine, thank you," she said. "I appreciate you coming over, but I'm really not in the mood right now."
The smiles on her friends' faces vanished, replaced with looks of concern and raised eyebrows.
"Why not, Twilight?"
asked Rainbow Dash.
"Is it because of what the princesses said?"
"What could they say that would get her worked up like this?" Rarity asked, looking at Rainbow Dash quizzically.
"They basically told her that she needs to pull herself together and face the fact Geo might never come back,"
Rainbow Dash said matter-of-factly. Rarity, Fluttershy, and Applejack gasped. "They didn't!" Rarity said, the shock in her voice obvious.
"Well, they did,"
Twilight snapped.
"And as much as I hate to admit it, they're right."
The volume of her voice dropped as she spoke.
"Of course they're right, Twilight,"
Rainbow Dash said warily.
"They are the princesses."
Rarity and Applejack both shot venomous glances at Rainbow Dash.
"You'd better come in, girls,"
Twilight sighed.
"I don't want to discuss this on my doorstep."
She opened the door and all 5 mares trooped inside. The door closed with a small click.
"So, what are you going to do, Twilight?"
Fluttershy asked timidly.
"If you don't mind telling me, that is."
Twilight smiled.
"I'm going to do what the princesses suggested," she said. "They said I need to accept the fact he might have forgotten about me, so that's what I'm going to do."
The other 5 looked at her with stunned expressions on their faces. They shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. Eventually, Pinkie Pie spoke up.
"Looks like Twilight's getting back into the dating scene," she said excitedly. "Oh, I'll throw a blind date party and I'll
Twilight stuffed a hoof into the party pony's mouth.
"I'm not ready for that yet," she said. "It'll be a while before I'm ready to date again."
Pinkie's face fell.
"But just because he's probably forgotten us doesn't mean we can't remember him," Twilight said, offering a smile.
Pinkie's face split into a wide grin.
"So I can hold a remembering Gale party then," she squealed. "Just like I was going to do when he was
She covered her mouth with her hoofs and shook her head furiously. Twilight patted her friend on the back.
"It's okay, Pinkie," she said softly.
"He's not dead. He's just in his own world, where he belongs." Pinkie removed her hoofs and nodded.
"I've got a party to plan for,"
she said quickly, before disappearing in a puff of confetti, balloons, and streamers. Twilight blinked for a moment before turning her attention to the 4 ponies who remained.
"We can still remember the good times we had with him, so we should celebrate that," she said, sighing contentedly.
The others nodded.
"What about that gift he was gonna give you, Twi?"
Applejack asked, pointing at a small box on the desk nearby.
"I'll keep it,"
Twilight replied.
"He went to all that effort to have it made, so it would be rude of me to simply throw it away. I'll keep it as a reminder of our time together."
Applejack smiled.
"Well, if we're gonna have a party, I guess I've got some apple pies to make," she said, tipping her head. "I'll see y'all later."
Twilight waved as Applejack left the library.
"It's so good that you're ready to move on, darling,"
Rarity said, wrapping a hoof around Twilight's neck in a tight hug.
"And remember, as your friends, we are always here for you."
Twilight smiled and returned the hug.
"Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to make sure that sister of mine hasn't destroyed my shop,"
Rarity said as she went towards the door.
"Again. Bye now, every pony." "Bye, Rarity,"
chorused the 3 who remained.
"I've got to clear some clouds,"
Rainbow Dash said as she stretched her wings. "But I'll see ya later, Twilight. You take care, ya hear?" Twilight dipped her head slightly and Rainbow Dash took off, leaving Twilight and Fluttershy standing in the library. Fluttershy nuzzled Twilight gently, a small smile on her face.
"I have to get back to the animals," she said quietly. "But if you ever want to talk, you know where I am."
Twilight returned the nuzzle. "Thanks, Fluttershy," she said. "It's good to know I have friends as great as you girls." Fluttershy blushed and left, closing the door behind her. As the door closed, Twilight sighed heavily. "Oh, girls," she said, "if you only knew how I really felt." I was lying on a makeshift bag in the laboratory with a gaming magazine across my face, caught in the embrace of sleep. A loud beeping noise soon jolted me awake. I shook my head and looked around, trying to find the source of the noise. My eyes fell on the stabilizer control panel. I heaved myself off the bed and walked over to it, rubbing my eyes and yawning. I looked at the display in front of me, and then I rubbed my eyes again for good measure, unable to believe the words I could see. "Charge completed." "Guys, get in here now!" I yelled. "It's finished!" The laboratory doors flew open and Sorrow rushed in, followed by John. Sorrow put his hands on the panel as he read it. He slowly turned to face John and I. "Well, Geo," he said with a smile, "it looks like your day of reckoning has arrived at last." I looked at Sorrow, then at the control panel, then I looked at the ceiling, and then I screamed with joy.